Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. In the macro world, attention to detail can be paramount. It's the detail of the texture, the lighting and of course the subject which can really make a picture. For a result like this you need technique more than equipment. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is the subject, this apple. So what I'm going to do is use a technique to bring out the texture in the top of the apple here and really make a picture of it. So what I'm going to do to start with is just condition the table that I'm going to use. So I'm just going to use a small piece of black cloth and I'm just going to place this on the table about there somewhere, just so that I can have no reflections affecting the subject. Okay, so we'll place the apple on the cloth, a bit like that. The next thing to do would be to sort out the camera position. So what I've got at the moment is at the front here I have my tripod and I'm going to put my camera on the top here, but you can see that the distance between the tripod and the apple isn't very much, and I've done that on purpose so that I can end up with a macro view of the top of the apple. Okay, so for the camera I'm going to use a medium format camera, but it doesn't really matter what sort of camera you use for this, as long as you can attach a reasonable macro lens. On this one I have a 120mm macro lens, so for a full frame format camera the equivalent would be around about 70mm. Okay, so I'll just pop this on the top of the tripod. And we'll just wind that up a little, just initially, something like that. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to line up the shot and take a test image. So what I'm going to do is use the waist level finder on the top of the camera. So to focus this image I'm going to have to wind the magnification right out to about 1.2 or thereabouts. There we are. Now as my camera is tethered, I have it connected to Capture One software here. I can show you all the settings that I have on the camera on the computer. So at the moment it's in full manual mode. I've set it for a shutter speed of 1/6 of a second, 100 ISO, and I've got the aperture set to the maximum for this lens, which is f4. So with those settings and no flash, just with the house lights, I'll grab an image and I'll see what I get. And there we are. You can see that we've got a reasonable image of our apple and the focus looks okay. You can see the depth of field is razor thin. What I need to do is increase the aperture a bit, and also I'd like to cut out all of this light. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'll increase that aperture from f4 to f8. Now if I were to just grab another image now, you would still see an image. Let's just do that. There we are. So if I was to use these settings with a flash, I would have this amount of contamination. So what I'm going to do is change the shutter speed to the flash sync speed for this camera. So from a 1/6 of a second, I'll change that to 1/125th of a second. Now your flash sync speeds will vary and will probably be greater than that. Okay, so at those settings, I'll grab an image and we should cut out all of the available light. There we go. So from now on, the only light which will affect the subject is the light which comes from the studio flash that I'll be using to illuminate the scene. So to illuminate that, I'm going to use this small flash head. Now you can do this just with a normal flash gun. You don't need anything very powerful and you don't need anything very big. In fact, in some cases, the smaller the better. Okay, so that's all set now, and just at an arbitrary energy level, I'll grab an image and we'll see what sort of exposure we get. And there we are. You can see that we've got a reasonable exposure. If I just zoom all the way in, we can see the depth of field is still very shallow. So what I want to do is actually increase that a bit. So what I'm going to do is change the aperture from f8 to, what shall I use, f16. So that's a 2-stop change. So to compensate for that, I'll need to add 2 stops of energy to this light to make up for that. So I can just dial that in on here. There we go. And with that, we'll grab another image. And there, you can see immediately that that has changed the depth of field quite considerably. So that's what we had before, and that's what I've got now. I just come all the way out. There, that's much better. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. Now I could go further. So for instance, if I go from 16 and I add yet another stop, that would be 22. So let's just do that. There we go. And you can see that you're actually getting diminishing returns. The difference between 16 and 22 is nothing like the difference between 16 and f8. So I think I'll just put it back at 16, take that back down to 7. There we go. Okay, so the next thing to consider would be the general quality of the light. So you can see in this image we've got a large hotspot on the top of the apple. Now that's caused because the light is directly behind here, and basically we're getting a reflection of this light in the top of the apple entering the lens. So I want to calm that down a little, and the way I'm going to do that is just to add a very small sheet of diffusion material. And again, working at a macro level like this, you don't need very large anything really. So what I want to do is just suspend this about here somewhere. There we are. So to suspend it, I've just put it in this lab stand, but you can use anything to do that. So it's a fairly simple setup. We've just got our light at the back here, diffusion material, subject. Okay, so without changing anything else, let's just grab an image and see what the difference is. There, and you should be able to see that immediately you've got a graduation now, not a hot spot. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So there we are. So you should be able to see that really at this stage there isn't that much of an improvement, but that graduation will become important as we add water droplets to the top of this. So to do that, I'm just going to use a small spray, just with water in it, and I'm just going to spray water onto the top of the apple. There we are, and I've just put a little bit on to start with, and we'll grab another image. There, and now you should be able to see how that has really broken up the highlight. And this is really the sort of thing that I want. But the very center here, I want to actually fill with water. So instead of using a spray for that, I'm just going to use a small eyedropper bottle, just with water in it. So I'll just put a small amount of water in the center of the apple. Now it's a lot easier to put this in than take it out. So we just want to do it quite slowly, a little bit at a time. Okay, so with that in there, let's grab an image and see what we get now. Yes, that's starting to get there. I think a little more, but maybe not too much. So I'll just pop a little bit more in the center. There we go. Once again, we'll grab that image. Yes, that's much more like the sort of thing I want. So I've got a nice amount of water in here, I think. And the rest of the beading on the top of the apple looks quite nice. So we're getting there. But I'd like to just break this up a little. It's very white at the moment because it's literally reflecting this surface. So what I'm going to do is just add some very small pieces of coloured cellophane. This is literally wrapping material. What I've done is just placed it in this small clamp. I've got a very small piece on the end here, and I'm just going to place this so that hopefully it gets reflected in the water in the apple. There we are. So let's just grab an image and see what difference that has made, if any. There, that's the sort of thing I want. So we've just got that nice little tinge of colour going on in there, which I think makes quite a nice difference to it. So that small piece of cellophane has made quite a large difference to the overall effect that we're getting. So what I want to do now is just control the blackness, if you like, of the background. If I just put the cursor on the background here, you can see from the numbers at the top that it's actually not quite black. Now that's probably due to flare from all this entering the lens. Now you won't get rid of that with a lens hood, but you will get rid of it with a flag. So this is a flag, this is just a small piece of cardboard, and I've just attached it to this clamp, and I'm just going to put this just over the top of the lens about here. There we are. We'll see if that's in anything like the right place. Okay, so you should be able to see that that's made quite a large difference to the background here. That's gone a lot darker. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So the addition of that flag has made quite a large difference to the overall look of the picture, which is what I wanted. Right, so I think for actually capturing the image, that's it. So what I'm going to do now is go into Photoshop and do the bare minimum of post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image that I captured earlier. So the first thing I want to do is just make a copy of this so that I can edit the copy and leave the camera original alone. So I'll go onto the background layer here, right click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll just call that Apple. There we are. So now I've got a new file at the top called Apple. I can close down the camera original. I've always got that to go back to. This is the file that I'll be editing. Okay, so what do I need to do to this? Well, actually not very much, I think. I might just do a very small amount of adjustment just to see if we can make any further improvement to the image. So I'll just go onto the adjustments here, and we'll just see if we can make any difference with the vibrance adjustment. There you go, you can see that that's making the whole image a little more saturated, which is not a bad thing. I quite like that. I don't want to go too far. If you do overdo it, it tends to look a little luminous, which is not really what we want. But there, I think that's made a positive change to the image. And I think finally, I just want to apply a crop. So again, I'm using this for video. I have a set ratio of 16:9. And what I'm going to do, I think, is just tighten it up on one side just to balance it a little more. And I might just rotate the whole image slightly. There, I think that's quite good. And there we have it. So by using a couple of techniques to modify the light and generally look after the details in the image, I've been able to create something which is a little out of the ordinary. And I think overall that's worked rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.